And welcome back to In the Can. One of the big subjects here at Sundance this year and many years is the argument over climate change. And there's a movie that very definitely brings that into focus and makes it very difficult to argue that climate change does not exist. It's a world documentary filmed this year, and it is called Anote's Ark. And we're lucky enough to have director Matthew Reitz here, as well as former president of Kiribati, Anote Tong. Anote's Ark is the name of the film. Matthew, tell us a little bit about what you saw and what you've put together with this movie.
So for me, it's naming a climate change movie, but it's really a movie about people, about characters, about Anote Tong and another woman called Samari that have to move to New Zealand. And what I wanted to achieve with that movie is really touch the heart of people by having an universal story of human living through the issues, rather than making another climate change movie with just facts and scientific data, and maybe people who just gonna speak about climate change but don't really know what's that mean in their daily life.
But I think the line that struck me the most in reading about the movie is, what if your country were swallowed by the sea? I mean, that stops you in your tracks, and that's pretty much what you're living with in Kiribati. Is that not right?
Well, it's this is the way we try to deal with our daily lives. And of course, with the projected, what the science is saying is that our future is not assured, and definitely the projections of the rise in sea level indicates that we're well within the century. Our islands will be submerged, and the question is, what do we do? How do we respond to that? It's not a crisis; it's a catastrophe.
It's something that you've been dealing with. I mean, you're not just watching it. This is something that you have been working on for a while.
Well, we have lived with it. We never really understood what was going on. We continue to believe, and I believe many of our own people continue to think that it's like normal, but it's not. Given the science, we have to listen to the science. And so, for me, it's an issue that's taken pretty much my entire 3 terms in office as president in my country to try to bring awareness to the international community that this is a huge challenge, perhaps the greatest moral challenge that humanity will ever face for quite some time. And we cannot solve it. We didn't create it, and we cannot solve it on our own. This is why it's so important to reach out, and the movie that Matthew has done, I think, has done this very, very effectively.
Matthew, when you see this incredible challenge, that this crisis that has appeared as a documentarian, what goes through your head when you went for the first time to Kiribati and heard about this?
I mean, the geological feature of the country is striking. The first time, I mean, it's not, you cannot explain how Kiribati is unless you go there. It's just basically very thin line of atoll, just spread in the middle of the Pacific, and you just realize just right away when you go there that they have nothing to go when that happens. So you don't have those kind of very dramatic, climate change catastrophe you see in other part of the world, So it's as a filmmaker and as a photographer before starting a movie, it was a bit hard to convince people about climate change in Kiribati, because it's not like you can really show it right away. It's like it's gradual, it's coming, but it's gradual. It's not like something that's just like visually very strong. So that was one of the challenges, and I think the human aspect of it just really bring it, because otherwise you can make another climate change catastrophic movie, and we have a lot of them, but at the end of the day, people of Kiribati, they have nowhere to go because there's no elevation. So it's like, and also it's a different, because the whole country has the same geological feature, so there's no one place where they can go.
It's New Zealand, right?
But within the country. So that's to make a big difference. Also, they're losing the states. I mean, the entire territory. So they're losing the country itself. As other places, like let's say Bangladesh was very affected, but they still have some. They're gonna have some land still, so they still claim having a country. So that's a huge difference.
A lot of times, many times, pictures tell the story much better than words can. And I know we have a trailer, a clip of the film. It's a beautiful film, and let's take a look at that. Just a very brief clip of the movie that you put together. How did you capture this gigantic world event in 77 minutes? How do you decide what to include, what not to include?
We spent more than a year in an edit room.
I bet.
No, really. I mean, that was a long process. We came from more than 300 hours of footage and narrowing down and trying to find the essence. Making one cut, another cut, leave the cut for 3 months, go back to the cut. It's a real long process, and we had 2 editors also during the process. And yeah, it's a very good question, but I think the only way to achieve it is taking time. And also taking time, but also stopping for some time, doing something as just thinking about something.
Fresh eyes.
Yeah, just stop doing it for a while and go back to it.
And former President Tong, what was your reaction when you saw the film? Was it yesterday? Was it the first time you saw it this week?
I had seen it before,
Okay.
but I must admit that it's not something that I expected. To be quite honest, when Matthew was following me taking the films, I didn't know he was around. It come to the stage
perfect.
where I was just doing my job, and the film was just being taken, and for most of it, if not all of it, I was quite unaware that all of this was happening. So when I saw the film, it's a bit of I've never seen myself, so it was an opportunity for me to do that. But I think I didn't know what to expect. But when I saw it, I must say I was quite impressed. I think I believe it's successful in conveying the message, in conveying the message that I've been trying to communicate over the years. And I think this does it more powerfully because, as Matthew says, and I've always said it, climate change is about people. It's not just about the polar bears, okay? It's about people. And it's not about the science, it's not about the parts per million of emissions. It's about what's going to happen to people. It's not about the economy. Okay?
It's like you said, it's a huge moral question.
It is.
And what are we going to see happen?
When you have other leaders arguing, saying, we cannot go below 2 degrees because it would affect our economies, and I'm responding, I say, okay, but it's going to mean that our future will be in jeopardy. So how do you weigh these arguments?
And then there are people in powerful positions, we won't name any names, that say that it doesn't even exist at all. How does that make you feel?
Well, I think again, it's a matter of how you see things. It's your own perception. I'm sure here in the United States, where you have huge mountains and you believe you are invincible, that you don't see this as a threat. But I assure you it is. It's going to come in different forms. Not in the form that we will face with the rise in sea level, but perhaps in different forms. But I assure you, no country is immune from what is happening.
I agree. Just changing directions a little bit, what I thought was interesting when reading about the film is that you involved the Kickstarter funding for the movie. How did that work out? That's different.
It worked out. I cannot say it bring like proper funding, but it's very good for reach out at certain stage. So it was like in the development, starting production stage. So also it's we start the Kickstarter, and then within a month we had the Facebook page with like 10,000 followers, and those people. So it's like to engage also. So I see that Kickstarter's campaign is more especially for engaging an audience early on because they feel engaged in the process rather than like real money.
I know that this is a passion for you. You're very committed to this film and to this project. What do you do now? Do you continue to campaign with the film for Kiribati? What do you do?
I mean, that's there's a question, and people ask me a lot about like the impact campaign, and I know in the States it's very important like for documentary filmmakers to have like this impact campaign, and I don't see myself as being in a campaign or just having impact. How I feel myself is like I want to be the best storyteller I can and make the best movie I can, and that's my job. And then I hope other people will take on. So it's like of course I want to travel and show the movie in different places. But I'm not in my mindset. I'm not like, okay, now the big campaign starts. For me, like now a new movie starts.
Right. Well, you picked the best, in my opinion, best film festival and the best audience here at Sundance. Premiere was yesterday, but people still have an opportunity to see the film several more times this week.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Great. Congratulations on your work, and I hope that it inspires many people to take action like you have.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you for the time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Anote's Arc, it's going to be a beautiful film. If you can see it, it is on your must-see list for the week. We'll be right back.
Being on a